There are a few ghost towns in our state, but how about a ghost harbor?
In this week's Finding Minnesota, John Lauritsen looks at the rise and fall of Taconite Harbor in Cook County.
There's still a light pole, and this was Main Street right here.
This was Main Street, yeah.
If you've never heard of the town Taconite Harbor, it might be because it doesn't exist anymore.
This was all mowed lawns, and this was all where all the folks lived.
But from the mid-50s to the mid-80s, the community thrived. There were about 20 homes, along with a town hall, fire hall, and even a school with sports teams.
Where I'm standing is the middle of the old Taconite Harbor rec area. This spot would have been the center of town. We could almost shoot hoops right now, couldn't we, Skip?
We could, yeah.
Skip Lamb was once a Little League coach in Taconite Harbor. Now he's a historian for a time that was. The town's history goes like this. A breakwall was built around two nearby islands on Lake Superior to protect boats picking up iron ore.
Then they needed a town for the people to live in that were going to run it, and they had to build them houses because there wasn't any housing here. So they built the entire city.
Many residents worked at the loading dock, and during the boom, they shipped taconite pellets to the East Coast. 10 million tons of taconite a year came from the town. Then came the bust. In the early 80s, the industry hit an all-time low, forcing families to leave and find work elsewhere.
So this is part of the Iron Range saga, where towns get abandoned, moved out, homes get moved.
Indeed, after the residents left, a real estate developer bought many of the houses, moved them, and sold them off one by one. They were gone by the early 90s. A decade later, the dock was also abandoned.
We feel very committed to making sure that we continue telling the rest of the story about Taconite Harbor.
In the nearby town of Schroeder, Taconite Harbor lives on.
At one time, it was the fastest ore loading facility on the Great Lakes.
Steve Shug is president of the Cross River Heritage Center. This summer, they have an exhibit celebrating the abandoned harbor town.
We have Taconite Harbor reunions periodically here at the Heritage Center, and a lot of people come for that.
The exhibit looks at the highlights and lowlights of the community's history. For instance, at one point, taconite dust would turn a lot of things red. That included fresh laundry hanging from clotheslines.
I had a laundromat. I had to have 3 machines just to wash red clothes.
There was also a train derailment involving more than 90 cars loaded with taconite. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. But for people who once lived and prospered here, the good memories far outweigh the bad.
It's important that people understand that it was a viable community and it was a town. It was a fun place to live, and it was a fun place for these kids to grow up.
In Cook County, with photojournalist Mike Durenberger, John Lauritsen, WCCO News.
You can still visit a portion of the abandoned Taconite Harbor along the North Shore.